Welcome to Zeta Protocol, the Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes podcast that's 63% less toxic than a forum thread about Relic Delta, 22% more speculative than your guildmate's uncle's Reddit leak, and statistically twice as likely to unlock a new crisis you didn't know you had. I'm Egnards, joined by Pico, keeper of Uncomfortable Truth's burrito, and tonight the holotables are shifting beneath our feet. A brand new B-Wing crashes straight into Home One's hangar, Relic Delta splits the player base down the middle, and high progression tiers rise above the horizon to demand more from rosters already running on fumes. In the shadows, CG teases a secret game mode. No name, no info, no context. Yet somehow destined to rewrite the way we play. So tighten your holsters, triple check your raid tickets, and hit play before someone slaps R10 on cup just to prove a point. All right, Pico Burrito, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm gonna tell you the phrase my family uses when we are in time of struggle and times of strife when we are not happy, and that is very simply, "Come on, everybody, I'm gonna take you to Booty City." All right, so we are here to take you to Booty City tonight. For those that don't know, it's a wonderful song by Joe Lewis and the Honey Bears. Yeah, Joe Lewis, Honey Bears, not Honey Badgers. It's a phenomenal song. If you have young kids, play that for them. I guarantee they will sing that chorus in the backseat of the car all the way there because they get to say Booty City. But man, I'm excited. You and I have been talking about this in the background. We are recording at 7 p.m. East Coast time, and I was supposed to have a customer call tonight at 10 p.m. and that got canceled. So I am happy, and I also now have a drink in my hand. So this is going to be a much better show.
It's beautiful because before you were like, crap, I have to do this sober. I have to do this with, not that we're drunk, but I have to do this without a beer. He's going to be
Yeah,
drinking his Allagash and
yeah,
I'm going to have a meeting right after. And now, isn't it lovely when those things kind of come to fruition, that responsibility that you know you have to do and you can't pull
yeah.
off, but someone else cancels? It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
It was wonderful. And I appreciate it. Not only did they send me an email on it, I got a phone call saying, "We want to make sure you saw the email." I'm like, "Oh, trust me, I did. Don't you worry. You want to cancel on me? I'm more than happy to do that." So, hey, what is this? So, look, I've been under a rock for the last
Yeah.
couple of weeks. Anything new going on?
No, nothing. It's the same
Okay,
old game.
awesome.
You know how
All
right
right.
around this time of year where we just bitch and moan and complain and say CG release something, CG release something, CG release something. That's that's what's happening right now. They started a little early this year.
Well, it's funny because we were, chit chatting before the start of this, and look, we'll get into all the details, but I guess big change shouldn't have been a surprise. I mean, we are approaching the 10-year anniversary. Like this is when big changes happen at these kind of big numerical kind of milestones, and um, I'm just not sure that this is. Give me 100 guesses. I'm not sure it would have been this, especially with everything that we saw just 2 days ago. That's coming in behind Relic Data or Delta. Excuse me. I'll keep saying Data, but uh, all of the reasoning and kind of all the other pieces that are coming along with it. So yeah, it's been a thing.
Yeah, I think what it is, and you can look at this in all types of media. You can look at it with movies, you can look at it with TV shows, with video games. When I was growing up, we had RTS games, right? RTS games were
Yeah,
huge. Now nobody plays RTS games.
yeah,
It's a very small market, and everybody wants to play like Call of Duty shooters or extraction shooters or Fortnite clones, right? And 10 years ago, it was survival horror games. And the same thing kind of exists in the mobile gaming space where games like Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, unless you have a very strong IP, this game is basically classic 2015,
yeah.
2016. And the game does have to evolve and the game does have to change. And we have seen a lot of that in the last year. And this, I don't know if it's the culmination of it, but it is probably the biggest change to date with Relic Delta.
Yeah, and I don't look, and they announced some of the things that will be coming to the game didn't really announce. They kind of at high level talked about it. I don't think you can say it's going to fundamentally change the game. Let me rephrase that. I am not one who's going to say it's going to fundamentally change the game. I think there are people that believe that it will, uh, but I do think it's going to maybe change the way that we look at progression. I think it's going to change the way that we look at
Yes.
how we construct rosters. Uh, it's interesting. Like when you make the comment though about strong IP. So there's once a month I get a Reddit message that pops up from I think r/gotcha is the thread, but it's the 50 most profitable gotcha games in the mobile space. And I don't know what their data source is, but it's interesting. There are two games based on what I would call American IP: Marvel
Yeah.
Strike Force and Galaxy of Heroes, and the other
Yep.
48 are primarily. I'm going to broadly say Asian IP from that side. So I think it's really interesting to me that when you talk about like a really strong IP, like I don't know how those other games make it
Hmm.
because they're also significantly higher up that list. Now I know that there's a lot of things that. Oh, my daughter plays one of them, and I can't think of which one it is. I mean, there's some I know that they played in the U.S. as well, but they're primarily built out of Japanese or other countries, gaming industries to drive over here. But yeah, I mean, this is I to your point. I'm not sure we survive this without Star Wars because it's the only place that we can get Star Wars in a lot of these cases.
It really it is the only place that we can get Star Wars and Disney, or EA really, because we're talking about EA has controlled
Yeah,
the IP for so long, and I know that they don't have a stranglehold on it anymore. But they have basically made sure that only one mobile game ever exists at any one time, right?
yeah,
And they've sunsetted other games. And about 6 or 7 years ago, a lot of people don't realize this. There was a mobile game, another mobile game in development, in very active development. And I'm not going to say that it was going to be the end of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, but based on their track record, it was very likely that the game was going to come out and then they were going to sunset Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes.
sure.
The Hyperdrive bundle came out. It revitalized the game. Revenues went up again. And then, oh, suddenly that app got canceled. Right. So it's kind of an interesting landscape there.
Wait a minute. So you're saying fundamental changes to the game made to strengthen player base actually has positive impact?
At the time, a lot of people didn't see it that way, right? They were like $100, but yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. That's not what I've heard all this week. That is the exact opposite. I don't know how to change my worldview to take this new piece of information and modify a notion that I have put in my head that frankly is rock solid and can never be modified.
yeah. We can dance around the subject of Relic Delta. Obviously, it's common. I feel like both of us are trying to stave off actually
Yeah,
talking about it, and we're like dancing around the subject because I'm gonna be honest with you. I am so very tired of talking about
yeah,
it. Um, what people don't realize is, yes, I am in the beta test. I have been, testing things. I have been talking with CG, and I have put out a lot of videos that I've heard great feedback on. But also, I've had maybe 30 to 40 DMs a day that are the size of chapters in a chapter book that aren't just feed, because I've asked people to send me what they
yeah,
thought, on the understanding that I probably wasn't going to respond to them, but I would read them.
yeah.
And a lot of these DMs are people asking me for feedback back, right? And a lot of them I do. And so I have had the Relic Delta conversation with a lot of regular players so many times. I have had a lot of different shows and sources and Three Scoundrels and all of these other things saying, "Hey, do you want to come on and talk about it?" And I will say, "I will," but like we're beating a dead horse at this point. Like I'm just gonna say the same damn thing that I've said 100 times.
Well, look. First of all, I do want to tell you one. I respect you for two very big reasons for this entire Relic Delta piece. You reached out to me about 10 minutes before you made a post and said, "I'm in this beta program. I'm going to post something. I can't share any details outside of what's public there." And
Yeah.
again, as someone who at work gets access to information, sometimes that's very, very difficult to do, especially
It's
with,
so
I'm sure,
hard.
the number of people that reach out to you with the, hey, I want feedback, but secretly they're trying to pump you for information so they can be in the know, is the first thing. And the second, and we are going to talk about this. Um, Man, I don't know how you haven't given up on humanity with some of the things that people have said about you, have said to you. Uh, it is absolutely fucking disgusting that there are people that honestly believe that it is okay to make personal attacks at people, regardless of what your stance on this are. That it is okay to make personal attacks on people that are doing nothing more than trying to put information out, collect information back, and try to make things better. Like it is garbage. And I've had this, actually I've had this argument on your Discord server in the past.
Yeah.
This is where, look, at the end of the day, you and I are fundamentally not anonymous. We are having a conversation today, and I'm going to have some really strong opinions on this matter. I'm going to share those pieces, and people can find me. All right. I'm not, I wouldn't say that I'm a very public person, but I also don't hide who I am. But I am willing to actually put my name and my face in front of the things that I'm saying here. If you are an anonymous coward making comments about people, calling people, I think one of the comment you made something to the point of like a cocksucking
A corporate cocksucker. Yeah.
corporate cocksucker. Thank you, corporate cocksucker, man. You're a coward. You're just a damn coward. And grow the f up. Like here's the deal. I'm gonna level set a piece of this conversation. All right. If you're going to say corporate shill, if you're going to say tone deaf, if you're going to say cash grab, I don't take you serious. Those are angry words, and it's okay to be angry. All right. I get people are angry, change is different, change is hard. That's okay. But if you're going to use those stupid little phrases, I'm not interested in what you're saying. You want to actually have an honest conversation and actually try and build points behind something, actually try to make an argument of what's going in place. More power to you. But calling CG a cash grabbing corporate, a cash grabbing entity that Egnards is a corporate shell, man, that's bullshit. You're just hearing other words that people are using from that side. Here's the way that I approach things. Man, I'm sorry. I went from 0 to 20 like that.
I'm
All
just
right.
gonna
Like
sit back and relax.
I feel like old man Logan all of a sudden on this. Look, here is what I tell people I work with. Here's what I tell my family. All right. When change happens or hard things come in, you're allowed to be angry for 24 hours. At the end of 24 hours, now we sit down and figure out how we're going to solve this problem. All right. And the answer to that problem, or how we solve this, is not repeatedly telling CG, don't do it. Because guess what? The ship has sailed. The boat is in the water. The engines are spinning. They're asking for advice. What direction do we take the ship? All right. So that's the first piece. The second piece is, and I saw this somewhere else, I appreciate the people that are trying to build this petition to get CG to stop. All right. But I actually have seen, I saw an advocate out, a social advocate talking about how we force change. And they said the worst thing that happened to advocacy are online petitions, because they take the smallest amount of effort and they have the tiniest amount of impact. It is so easy to go in and check a box and say, I don't want this to happen. And then I go about my daily business.
And do
Right
nothing.
now, and I'm going to steal this from Solo Base. He talked about this on Gambit this week. There's about 5,000 to 6,000 people that have signed that petition. There are 380,000 daily active users. It is a drop in the bucket where that sits. All right. So, what I would like for us to do today, well, I'm going to take a deep breath in just a second, is I would like to actually talk about Relic Data. I'd like to talk about what came out of that email, and I would like to actually have some back and forth on what we think is going to work, what we don't think is going to work, and what we think might be a better solution.
Yeah.
All right.
We can do that.
Shit, that was
The one thing I do want to say though on the topic, a lot of the backlash to me had started. I was in the beta. I was actually in the process of filming another video when Meathead messaged me in probably a copy paste that said, "Hey, by the way, embargo's lifted. You can make this post." So I said, "Oh, all right, I'm going to go live right now, right? I'm going to go live and I'm going to be first one here and I'm going to talk about it with people. It's going to be great." And then I made the mistake of going to Reddit. And I don't spend a lot of time on Reddit anymore,
yeah.
but I decided throughout this ordeal, I was going to try to inform people, as many people as could be heard, through like the lens of facts, right? Whether you love it or hate it. And I had made a post that basically said, hey, yes, I'm in this beta. Um, if you hate it, that's fine. If you want to be angry about it, that's fine. If you want to boycott it, if you want to do a petition, I support all of those things. The only thing that I ask you to do is that understand that the people that work for CG are people, that they are
Yeah.
humans. And to, in your opinions and in your expressing of your opinions, please just understand that they are actual human beings, and to not be assholes to them personally, right? If you have angry rhetoric you want to write, fine, but don't personally attack them. And that's where a lot of the backlash to me came from, was like, oh, this guy, what the fuck? Why does he care about those guys? Such a shill. They're people, man. Like, we're all people, right? Like, just treat the world right now needs more of that. Just treat people like people.
It literally takes zero effort to be decent. That's
That
all
should
that
be
it
the
is.
default, right? Like, just that's
Just to
how
be
I grew
decent.
up.
To be decent. I don't have to agree with you. You don't have to. Look, I guarantee there are people that have already turned this off because I said that I'm angry at other people over this topic. And that's great. I appreciate it. All right. But I think the worst thing that I said about anyone is that if you use a bunch of these kind of easy to use words, I don't take you seriously. All right.
Yeah. You know
That's
what?
not a comment on who you are. That's not a comment on anything you're at. It's just like I tend to blow off what you're saying from that perspective.
I had
I think, yeah. Go
I
ahead.
had somebody, you watched my video last night, and you and I maybe agree on some points and not agree on some points. And then I posted another one this morning that tried to clarify that opinion on a little bit more sleep. And someone had posted in the comments, they said, after reading your clarification, I still don't agree with you, and here's why. And I'm really, really sorry, but blah, blah, blah. And I have been not replying to a lot of the comments, but I basically said to this guy, listen, the great thing is that you and I can disagree, and you can do it civilly. And I love those conversations. You don't have to agree with me. You can tell me I am wrong, but do it like two adults talking to each other and having a conversation. And that's what you did. And I appreciate that. And you are welcome to have those comments anytime you want, because I love that.
So, and we, I think we touched on this a little bit between the two of us yesterday, and this is this is like one of my big problems with the response is we've kind of entered a mode that for folks that are neutral to supportive of this, and supportive is a strange word because I don't think anyone was supportive of 95%, but understanding, hey, I think I know what they're doing here. But
Yeah.
I'll say anything that the default reaction wasn't, this is wrong, stop. Those people were pushed out. It was the reaction that you got when you say, hey, let's take a lens to this and let's not, get aggressive on this. And it's the name calling. It's right now, it seems like the only real conversation anyone in the broader communities want to have. When I say broader, I mean kind of some of these big Discord servers in Reddit, on the forums. Absolutely, is you either agree that this is terrible and we don't move forward, or we don't want to hear from you and we're going to ridicule your opinion.
Yeah.
And I brought that up to you last night because I don't want to speak for everyone in my guild, but I have a very small, there's 50 of us there. And I think by and large, everyone there is taking the view of like, I'm not sure where this is going. I'm not sure it's needed, but I'm willing to wait to see where it lands. Like it's definitely not don't do it. It's and now so I think that there's a little bit of there are voices that kind of fit that category, neutral to
Yeah.
supportive, that aren't being heard because frankly it's just not worth speaking up at this point.
I would agree with that. I feel like there are people, and there are a lot of very smart people who are more players and aren't content creators. And I feel like they know that if they speak out, they're beating against a brick wall, right? And not that I want to get into US politics on a Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes podcast, but regardless of which side you support, that's kind of what it feels like when you talk to anyone, is
Yeah.
it's so divisive that you just can't even hear the opinion of somebody else without attacking them. And I've had multiple people reach out to me and say, like, literally that, like, this very specifically feels like that right now, because you cannot have an informed conversation with someone that does not agree with your opinion without being attacked.
Yeah, there was, and by the way, for because as we talked about Reddit, uh, I read, I wanted to see the feedback. So I let me take a step back. I read the the breakdown from CG yesterday, and I still believe I'd love to know who wrote that for them, because I thought it was incredibly well written, well laid out. I appreciated that not only did they talk about their game design philosophy, that idea around vertical versus horizontal scale, which I thought was really interesting to think about from that perspective. And then when they talked about the core gameplay loop, which I think is the first time that they ever laid that out. Uh, but I thought it was just really well communicated. And I have some opinions of when they should have released it or not. But I was going through the Reddit thread, and again, it was the people that clearly didn't read anything. It was just like, nope, I'm going to tell you how terrible this is. But down in the message, there was someone who started railing on CG because they didn't even understand their game. Where CG believes this is a vertical scale, and for those that didn't read it, vertical scale is your character gets more powerful to be able to beat new content. Horizontal is we give you more tools to beat content. All right, so those are kind of the two basic game design philosophies, which I had never heard of before. But they're like, we are a vertical scale game. We build progress on top of progress, relic levels, the whole 9 yards. Someone's like, CG's so dumb, they don't even understand that their game is really a horizontal scale. I'm like, no, you like no, you don't get to tell someone who owns it that they're an idiot. They inherently understand it better. They deal with this every day, and that was like, oh, it's not really easy to go up and just click leave,
No.
and it's gone. It's gone. I don't see it anymore. And again, that's there was again, and look, I've seen people push back on some of the things in the document, and they don't agree. I think there's still some people that think some of the options that they laid out are viable, which I would love to talk through some of those. Um, but I was actually really excited. I was like, oh, part of why I went to Reddit was like, people are going to read this and they're going to be like, oh, they put a lot of thought into this, and it was the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And I just I
I want to go on record here actually with that post. I'm going to go on record and I'm going
yeah,
to sell myself out here. Um, CG Redacted, the person who did write that post. Um, there's my little joke there. I had a brief conversation with them and I said before this happened, like, this is a very well written post. And I understand it and I get what's going on here. But I think that the average player is not going to understand it in their heightened angry state right now. And I think that without a version 3 of the beta as part of the announcement, so I refer to each version as like the major change log that happens in the beta. Without that as part of the announcement, you're probably going to throw more fuel on the fire. And I said that to them, and I will. I know he listens to some of the stuff that, or she, I honestly have no idea, to some of the stuff that I put out. And I am going to say, I'm not going to say sorry because I think it was a healthy conversation that we had. But I will say that I was wrong. Reddit is a cesspool and Reddit has been overtly negative. But I have seen a lot of people say, now that I know what's going on, I'm more willing to give this a chance. And that's through YouTube, that's through Discord, right? But I have not seen a single person say, I was willing to give it a chance and now screw it. So I'm gonna say I'm wrong, or I was wrong there. And hey, look, sometimes you are.
And look, this gets back to there's 280,000 players. Uh, Even if, because you and I were throwing around, we were talking about 20% a lot yesterday. 20% is 76,000 players is what that represents. If 20% of the player base are engaging in this conversation right now, I would be shocked. So that means
It's
again,
true.
there's a large portion of this. One, they're gonna log in. It's gonna be a change, and there's probably of that a large number of them aren't gonna care. Some of them may decide, look, I just don't want to learn something new from that side. But you know, I guess where my head is around this change, and there's a couple of pieces. One, as a community, I think we need to start breaking the conversation into PVE versus PvP because I think they're two drastically different conversations.
Yes.
And I'll give you a very easy example of why I'm excited about this change when it comes to PvE. So one of the things that they talked about in the big developer post was they were trying to assign more value to higher relic levels because right now they're like, look, there isn't. And they even reference like this is the view of the community, and they really couldn't argue with it from that side. And Relic 9 is not inherently more powerful than Relic 5. And as an example to that, we're in Rise of the Empire this week.
Yes.
And 2 weeks ago, so there's a special mission on the first day. So the planet is Relic 5, and I believe that's the one you need to bring Kira and
It's
Young
Kira.
Khan in.
Yep.
Kira, it's Kira, another smuggler. I forget which one. And then you've got up at Vandor, you've got two other smugglers that are needed for that mission. So I decided, I mean, I now have an R8 or greater team. I think actually three of the characters are R9 as part of it. And I went into that mission and I lost. So R9 characters versus R5. There was no inherent advantage to the roster investment that I made. So when they talk about Relic Data or the Relic Delta, you know, I should be doing significantly more damage to that team in PvP, and that's one of the things that they want to solve. Characters who build a higher roster should be able to flat out just annihilate the first couple phases. And I think again, like that's a change that I welcome in that
Yes.
aspect. So again, I think I'd love for you to talk about this because I think you picked up on this right away. But Conquest, I think, creates a set of challenges.
Yes. So
Yeah,
so Conquest is interesting because, and I don't think that this was something that they expected originally, but this is something that I brought up kind of right away. And a lot of the community brought up right away, right after they announced this, was, hey, I'm doing Red Crate on Conquest. I'm an 8 to 9 million GP player, but Conquest goes Relic 4, Relic 5, Relic 6, Relic 7, Relic 8. And now you're telling me that I am going to be kind of screwed out of Conquest as a player. And we brought that feedback back to CG, and they said, okay, we're going to change Conquest to be Relic 4 and Relic 5 only, which is a positive, very quick
yeah,
change that they made. And that is awesome. But the other negative to that was, players who advance past those relics and who have more advanced rosters, they are now, take like Padawan Obi-Wan, for example, who is going to have, who's very likely to be a Relic 9 character because of Duel of the Fates.
yep.
For those of you, especially if you have the Omicron, I know you were a pretty quick adapter. I did it fairly recently as a time saver. Um, Padawan Obi-Wan is going to be smacking shit around. So when it comes to feat acquisition, it's going to be a lot harder to farm feats because the way that battles work, well, one, the battle ends quicker, so you can't like sit there and farm it.
Yeah.
But two, the damage happens before the attempt to apply a buff or a debuff or a debuff. Buffs happen right away on the other side. So
Yeah.
if you kill somebody with an attack that applies a debuff, you don't attempt to apply. And the problem becomes as you advance your roster, you may be killing things too quickly to be able to acquire feats. And, CG does not have an answer to that yet, but they did effectively say, we are keeping this off through the Stranger's Conquest, in Conquest, to be
Yep.
clear. We don't have a release date of it as it is. Uh, but we are going to visit this and we are going to figure out that problem. And we are going to look at it from a player forward way to make sure it benefits the players over us. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. That's the only information I have. But it is. Conquest is tricky from a PvE standpoint.
And two things. One, I think we can. I mean, we'll call it speculation, but I think it's fair to assume that we'll see this in the third or fourth week of November at the 10-year anniversary. Like that's just it. Look, man, I'm happy to anybody who wants to bet a crystal pack on that. I'm happy to do so.
I
Uh,
would bet
yeah.
that it is going to come out in the last update before they leave for holiday because
So you think it's going to go all the way into December? Okay.
it just seems like every year they release something major and then say, "All right, bye
Fair enough.
guys."
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what this is.
The specific to Conquest, and again, I'm interested to see how they solve this. There are two things I kind of think that we're going to land on. I think the first is I think we're going to see a significant drop in the number of debuff X or buff Y type features, meaning where it might be 60 today, it might be 10 is what we'll
Yeah.
see. I think this also opens up the door to hard plus in Conquest. I think that we'll see that, especially around. Again, we'll talk about some of the relic pieces. Now, when we pivot over to PVE, and look, I get it, but there is. Look, we have to start thinking about things from an equity perspective. In
Yes.
the example that I give here, so we saw the relic information come in last week, and I will. I reached out to you about this on Friday, and then actually went on to your server, and I was trying to have a conversation about it, and I feel like it devolved very quickly. But for background, I have had a miserable 2 months of work to the point that I think in back-to-back conquests I went 1-8, and those eights were me taking a 10 because I just didn't have time to participate.
Yeah.
I'm a 16 million, or I was a 15 million player that fell all the way to K3, and understand that's on me. Like I fell down there, but it's and then so there's that thing. It's the high GP player that is down in K3 or in that area that is overpowered what's in place. And why I reached out to you is all of my fights for a good kind of couple of month window leading up to that, it was like my Relic 9 teams against someone who was a Relic 3. So I was questioning the data that CG was using in that case. So that's the first piece. And then on the other side, look, you've got a number of people that are saying, I'm a lower GP, I should be able to punch up. And where I want to talk about this. So when I was trying to give this example of, hey, life got in the way, I fell, and now there are people that people that are having to deal with me because of where I'm at. The first comment I got was, do you think you belong there? And so I want to think about the two different sides of this conversation. If you're a 12 million player in K1, you're punching up and you're proving it to the man. But when I fall down there, it's you don't belong there. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And and it's look at my comment was like, look, work out in the way. Like, well, that's your fault. I'm not arguing that I shouldn't be in K3. Like it get like the whole thing came into like, where do you belong? Well, I belong in K3 because I didn't participate. Like I earned my spot into K3 just with them going back the other direction. So I think part of this is if the community wants to agree that they should have the ability that the little guy should be able to punch up, we're going to have to accept that the big guy's going to fall down, and it's just the way
very
the
true.
game goes.
That is true.
Right?
When we talk about GAC, I mean, I have lots of ideas for how to make GAC work in a more equitable way as it is. But when it comes to like falling in GAC because of short-term life things that happened, I mean, I think if somebody's coming to you and saying, hey, that's your fault, like that's your problem. And to me, it's like, yes, it is. I've never said otherwise. You're the one coming to me. But the reality is I don't believe the numbers are where they need to be yet. But the reality is that from the testing we've done so far, a lot of teams still can punch up. We were doing Treya versus Gungans, and all GAC Omicron's active. Now, I theorized ahead of time that gimmick teams, so teams that have a very specific gimmick, are going to be less effective, less
Yeah.
affected by this. I was winning 100% of matches up to Relic Delta 4.
Okay.
And at Relic Delta 5, I was winning 33% of them, but
Okay.
33% of them were timeouts. But I also have to play on blue stacks where it's slower and
Yeah.
I have to move my mouse along because there's no hotkeys. So if I were playing on my PC or on my phone, they would not have been timeouts, but they would have gone down to the wire. Now, that's not typical of every team, obviously, but that is me taking a Relic 4 Treya team against a Relic 9 3 Omicron Gungans team and winning. A team doing 200% more damage to me. And again, in other cases, in other instances, Bane, as an example, does not punch up as well. But at the same time, Bane is also a very common Relic 8 plus tune.
Yeah.
Nobody leaves Bane at Relic 4, right? So it's this weird balance that we're trying to find right now with the tools that we're given.
And I think again, I'm not in the beta program. Like I'm looking at this in terms of what do I expect the reality to be for people, and I
Yeah.
think that I have constantly been looking at relic data under two lenses. The first being a 2-level relic gap to me seems like the sweet spot to balance against, because R7 versus R9 or R5 versus R7, and give me 1 second on that. That to me seems a little more common
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
5 versus 9 is the first piece. The second, I do think too many players right now are focusing around Relic 9 because that's the highest of the high. I think that for the first 6 months, this conversation is going to focus around a ceiling of R7.
Yes.
And I think that because I think for most players, R7, a raise the tide, roster move for a lot of players are going to be up to R7, which again is a 2-level gap. Which, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it translates to 20%, doing 20% more damage and receiving 20% less. Is that correct at 2 relic levels?
That sounds similar. I want to. I have had so many numbers thrown at me.
Yeah.
In the last couple of in the last week that I don't know off the top of my head. I know that it's 20% more damage.
And what that starts to translate to is
Actually, look.
a datacron. Like, and
Yes,
again, that's
that's
on
what
top
I've
of
compared it to as well.
that
To them,
that comes on top of a datacron. Look, I'm gonna be really clear with people, like my view on this. So I picked back up GAC 2 weeks ago. I was in K3. I went 6-0, and I did not have anyone clear. So I missed the first full week. I went 6-0 in K3 and up into K2, and I did not have anyone clear a single zone on me. All right.
yeah,
I set the same defense that I normally would, but it was R9s versus R3s and R5s, and they didn't have a chance in the world. And I'll be honest, they shouldn't. You can say however you want to. Again, that probably feels like a very elitist comment to people, but I'm sorry, but when you compare, I was going against players with 3 to 4 million less GP. I should automatically win those. Now, in a perfect world, everyone plays every day. What ends up happening is I don't stay there. I end up in K1. I end up in the top 200, and I get my teeth caved in because people will very quickly find out I'm not good at the game. I just have better tools.
yes.
And that's what I think is going to end up happening.
It's going to definitely reposition, and I know some people are actually very excited in the middle for that exactly to happen. because they feel like, all right, the people who kind of mostly sort of play, they are going to be pushed up automatically, and now they're
Yeah.
not going to have to deal with those players anymore. Just to interject, because I am looking at my document right now, you were very close. It's 20% more damage, negative 17% damage, and I
Okay.
only correct you and myself because I don't want 40 negative comments saying, "Oh, by the way, this is the correct thing." When I mean, we were close enough. Cut me
Yeah.
a break, right? But that's what it is.
And look, and it's interesting because the way that, and I think it's important to talk about this gap and how it's going to turn out. And while I was going through my tumble phase, I have always been the kind of person, especially when the numbers, the GP numbers get so skewed between the two, is that when I can't participate in GAC, I will reach out to my opponent and tell them, I don't have time. I'm going to take a 10. You need to score 11. Like, you need one more
Yeah.
than where I get. Like, most people are like, hey, great, because I wasn't even going to try. But I actually had someone come back and say, I appreciate the feedback. He's like, but I'm really disappointed because I was looking forward to playing GAC this week and I'm not going to be able to get any place. So like
Yeah.
even with like some, it's I get that there's a lot of people that it's not about winning, it's about being able to compete. And I get beating someone that you wouldn't expect to do so like is great from that side. But I think that where GAC is going to end up is it's going to look a little bit like the old GP matchmaking system that we have with a ladder inside of that. We're going to end up with these striations that are going to be based. It's going to look a lot like GP, but similar size GP end up having similar size roster views in those cases. And it's going to be a ladder where you're fighting up and down between those, and it's likely going to be 15, 16 in K1, 13, 14 in K2, and 11, 12 in K3 or something at that point. And look, at the end of the day, I think that if it means that people get to have more fights against rosters that they can compete against, I think that's a win for the community.
Yeah, as long as they get this right, and I've said this, I know there's a lot of conspiracies going on right now. From my conversations, um, I do believe this test is being done in earnest. I don't think that this is some kind of corporate bullshit, whatever. I do really strongly feel, and a lot of people don't understand why they do this, why do they do that. Um, and I don't fully understand either, but at least from my conversations, I can say I very much feel strongly that they do want to get this right. Now, will they? I don't know, right? I couldn't possibly know. But you kind of hit the nail a little bit earlier on when you're saying that everyone's looking at those Relic 4 to Relic 9 or Relic 5 to Relic 9. And I just got pushed out of K1. I was at the very tip, and I didn't really have a lot of time to play this week because of reasons, right? Like having to deal with the beta and all these videos and communicating with them. So I did all my matches very fast, but my week was all K1 matchups. And out of curiosity, I looked at my last matchup of the week, and my opponent had two Relic 9 characters in his entire defense, right? So this is a K1 matchup where my opponent had two Relic 9 characters. Not two, like in his whole roster, but like in terms of what I needed to defend against, not as big as what people seem to think. And then when we talk about like my Treya team versus the Gungan team, R4 to R9, a lot of my losses at a Relic 5 or a Relic Delta 5 were because my tank died. And if you think about it, Sith Empire Trooper is a Leviathan requirement at Relic 7,
Yeah,
right? So he would have been taking a lot less damage in a real instance as a reasonable character you bring up. You don't have to bring up the entire team. You just have to bring up certain key characters and be smart about the characters that you're bringing up. And right now, none of our testing is with Datacrons, right? And that might change the matchups. That
yeah,
might change what we see. That might change the data completely. But when you do a scientific experiment, you change one thing at a time and you look at that
yeah,
one thing
yeah,
and you compare notes on that one thing and then you move on to the next thing, right? And that's what we're doing right now is we're getting variations and we're told, hey, we want you to test now. We've heard the criticisms that, and this is what I brought up yesterday, that all of you are tip of the spear players that have 9 years of roster mod depth, right? So I want you guys to move your mods around and use more average mods and see what the matchups look like using more average mods, so that we can get some testing there to see what the average player is going to expect.
Yeah, and I think as you're talking about like bringing up characters, I do think again part of the feedback is it's taking away the strategy from this. And look, I think they hit the nail on the head in the post. Like, no, it's actually going to introduce strategy. So let's use three typically Relic 5 characters that we see. We see Hux, we see C3PO, and we see Hermit Yoda. Is all typically are going to be three Relic 5 characters because what they provide to the team is being present. That's all that
Yes.
they do. They don't do anything else in those cases. Well, now if I can build a team that does significant damage in an AE format, like what happens to a Jedi Master Luke team when they can't keep calling Hermit Yoda to feed TM to the team? Like, can I now punch up from that perspective because I put an AE damage dealer in place? Or what happens when Hux dies again from a large AE and the fact that all of a sudden, oh, now my team has TM and I have a way to go after. So I think again, it's the you know a lot of what Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes has been over the last 3 years has kind of been built around conventional wisdom. They called it right out in the post. The conventional wisdom is you R9 characters you need for events, maybe a couple of tanks, and then you don't engage from that side. People are going to have to learn how to throw that conventional wisdom away
Yeah.
and start viewing this from the standpoint of like, look, raising your tide around your average relic level is going to absolutely matter in these games.
And we've had things like that happen before. As a territory battles officer, I remember when Rise of the Empire first came out, it was about 8 months of retraining my guild from, okay, you have to max combat waves, right? You need to go 71 of 71 on combat waves or 70 of 71 because we need those combats. And retraining everyone to, no, you have to do the platoons because those are doing way more for the guild than your single character, right? Like before, you wanted to be the one that got max combat waves, but your Relic 9 gas is worth 10 million points as a platoon if you're the only one with a Relic 9 gas, right? And that took a long time to retrain people. And I think you are right. It is going to take time to be retrained. And I think the neat thing about this system, when it's done right and finalized, is I always enjoyed the game when I didn't have everything, when I was a player trying to catch up and I was playing against players who did not have everything. And you didn't know. Maybe you had CLS and they had clones. Maybe they
Yep.
had Ray, but you got Slicker. Everything's so homogenized now that everybody has everything. And at the Kyber level, maybe the one thing you don't have is the brand new thing. This is going to bring in that dynamic again of, all right, what did they prioritize their relics on versus what did I prioritize my relics on? And it's going to add that layer back into the game. So that in particular, I am a little bit excited about.
Look, it's an interesting idea that especially for new accounts, you get two light side bundles that give you two teams. You put one in the top, you put one in the bottom, and now tell your opponent good luck clearing a 5 level relic gap between the two.
Yeah.
Again, you're going to climb quickly and you're going to hit a ceiling of where it comes in. I did want to talk about some of the examples in here because I think some of them are really interesting. Some of them also are humorous. So, they said one of the things they're hearing is change the relic stats on existing levels. The example is updated, or R9 updated to an additional 50 mastery and 100 speed.
Yeah.
Look, you think that there is anger around relic data? Could you imagine adding 100 speed to an R9?
Oh my God.
I mean, that would just like, again, that would be a conversation of haves and have-nots. It would break the game. It would have this. It would have the same result. In fact, I think it would have
I think it would be worse. It would be worse.
There's no way to counter that until you get closer from that side. That was one of like of all the suggestions that they said that they consider. I looked at one and I'm like, oh man, that is like throw a hand grenade in a room and walk away piece. The other one that I thought was interesting, and again, I think I want to talk about it in this context of we have to come to an agreement that we need equitable change across. And one of the suggestions, and I've seen this in other places, is only do this for relic levels seven and above.
Yeah.
Only put this gap in, and what that says, whether the intention of the person that was those people that were making that suggestion, what that comes across as is make this change for someone else. Don't make this for me. Because
I don't have to deal with it.
Someone in my roster spot is not going to say, hey, let's just do this at R7. Like, it's going to be someone that doesn't participate in that part of it that's making that change. And look, that would be terrible. That would be creating two different games, and frankly, it would make it impossible for other people to ever catch up from that side. Because again, as they continue to add more relic levels, the goalposts just continue to move further and further,
Keeps to move.
further away. Yeah.
The one thing I will say, for me, and when talking about Relic Delta, again, I know you had messaged me yesterday, I think after watching my video, and when it comes down to my mood on Relic Delta changing to a little bit more negative, I think that my big problem isn't necessarily with the system itself. Because after reading the post, you go, okay, I get it, right? Like, this makes sense. It's going to be good for the long-term health of the game. I do think that CG is being a little blasé about the short term. And I think that a lot of the short-term ramifications are things that can be solved. And those are the things that I really want to push, because as a almost 14 million player, a lot of those short-term ramifications don't affect me at all. Right. But I try to think of the players who are just starting out, or the players who are at 1 million or 2 million, or how they're going to feel in 3 months. And one big example for me is like assault battles, right? And I've been pushing them to give me a response on assault battles and what they're going to do with relic levels there. And my thought is there somebody at 1 million who's starting to build towards assault battles who is now going to have to build much further than they would have before? That's like a short-term thing that has no effect on me, but it might affect a lot of players who are in that newer ecosystem. It's a very solvable problem, and I just really want those solvable short-term problems to be addressed, and I want them to be solved before this comes to the game.
Well, and look, this actually leads into the other thing that I think that we should talk about. And again, we're going to get into speculation at this point, but look, if we look at so they made a number of other announcements with this. One being a very nebulous, at least the way that I interpreted it, is that gearing is going to go away for characters moving forward. So, but you'll still earn all that salvage, and the idea is you dump that into making relics, which again tells me that game progression is now going to be tied to relics, as opposed to this model where it's gear to a certain point and then it's relics to a certain point. It is the first, and the second is it really paints an interesting view of some of the things they've introduced into the game in the last 3 months, specifically allowing access to relics at lower star tiers. All right, so now, because I believe you can get a Relic 5 character before Relic 7. I think that's what it is.
Relic 4. Relic 4 at 6 stars, Relic 3 at 5 stars, Relic 2 at 4 stars, I think it is.
Okay. So that's the first. And then it's the introduction of these tokens that, again, to me, these light speed tokens, it feels like both of these are going to change. It feels like immediately you're going to unlock a character and you're going to be moving into relic levels to start building on that path. And it feels like the tokens are going to be less about getting characters to 7 stars and more about getting them relic levels associated with it, because that's the progression system that we're going to run into. Yeah. And then what's also supposed to be coming, they announced Relic 10. That was surprising to me, because it felt like if you're going to be Relic Delta, you wouldn't tag a relic level on top, although I appreciate a new system that comes in. But the two pieces they announced with that is they're going to make Relic 9 material available on the scavenger, which
Hmm.
is great. And the one that I, again, really interesting to me, Relic 10 will enter the scavenger on the outset, and the signal data will not come out of Cantina Energy. Like you will generate signal data coming out of the scavenger because they're like, look, we don't want to slow down you bringing up your previous roster. And that again, and I think I messaged you this. I think that if I were working for CG and responsible for coming up with the release of this, I would have on a Wednesday, I would have put this post up to say what we're doing, and I would have done it at say 5 o'clock Eastern time, and told all of my content creators that we're going to then go message this and start soliciting feedback. Your NDA is lifted an hour later.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
start the conversation with, I'm giving you a new game mode. We're going to change the experience around how we level up characters, and we'll tell you about that. We're bringing in Relic 10. This is why we're doing all these things. And by the way, here are all these people that are testing. They're able to share what they're doing, and we want you to provide them feedback. I think this goes a lot different.
I agree. And I kind of had said as much to them as well. I do feel like the initial way that they did it was like we were thrown to the wolves, right? Like the post was like, by the way, cool new thing. We're going to let them tell you about it. And
Yeah.
I do kind of understand, from a content perspective, you say, hey, we're going to give these guys the ad revenue and the views and the clicks and the whatever. So if that's why, I at least appreciate the thought behind it. But it does feel like, okay, guys, you deal with the people that we know are probably
Yeah.
going to be angry. Um, and I think if this post had come out originally last week, people still would have been angry about Relic Delta. But a lot of the people who are coming around to it now would have never been angry in the first place. So you would have had less people who are angry about it because a lot of the smarter and more, I don't know if smart is the right word, but the more thought provoked people and the people who are interested in the long term ramifications and thoughts of the game, those are the ones going, oh, okay, you've given me the reason, right? You've given me why this has to happen, and I support the game, so I'm going to support this.
And look, I'm not even look. Creators are creators, and they have their personalities that they use in that case. But when you give when you explain when you shine a light in one corner of a dark room and say go tell everyone else what's going on that side, you get a very limited view of what's happening. And then when
Yeah.
you flip on the light switch and you're like, oh man, like you start describing everything else in the room, it just comes across very different. Like it's back to, you can never put this back in the box.
Yeah.
This is why companies have PR firms. This is why they have marketing firms. CG may, I don't know, but this is why organizations that are very good at these things or of creating a message, they very much control the message that they can, and they put that back in. It should have been a communication plan. And look, two things can be true. It absolutely is a case that CG wanted to get information out to the community, and they wanted to help content creators and have something to do that. They're also, it's fair to say they are using you guys as a free voice to amplify their message from the side. They absolutely both can be true, but at the same time, you got to give the people you're trying to partner with a fighting chance
Yeah.
to get through this. And again, hindsight being 2020, yeah, I think they probably did something different. Again, I will go back to, we have been critical in the past of the 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 jokey nature sometimes of some of these big change posts that are coming in,
Yeah.
and to sit down and write it in a very professional manner and proofread it and do it in a very thorough manner. Again, like, please do more of that. Like, it does feel like someone dumped this into GPT and said, provide me a very professional, but it's a simple thing from that side. But again, it was clearly articulated through, and it didn't. I've yet to see someone say like, yeah, and by the way, the grammar sucked and they misspelled all of these words, like, because people get hung up on those things.
Yes. They very much do. And one thing that I will say, I did mention, I don't remember where I mentioned this. I might have mentioned it on my brunch stream this Sunday. I don't remember, but I kind of let the cat out of the bag, I think, with that one, because I specifically reached out to Meathead very specifically to ask him if I could share a piece of information that kind of has to do with the beta, but kind of really shouldn't have been shared. And I got the feeling like, well, I should say he allowed me to, but I also get the feeling like it's not that he didn't want me to, but he didn't want the spotlight shined here, or didn't want me to think like it was necessary. But I want to share it because I do think it's important. During our pre-beta meetings, um, there was a lot of talk about this beta, and you've been around this game for a long time. There's a lot of people who are newer that maybe don't realize there was a beta program years ago, and then there was a leak with Datacrons, and the beta program was shut down. And I know that you and Sarah had talked about this after it was shut down, like the need for a beta program, the need for like an NDA or whatever else. Um, and I've heard in the last week from people that used to be in that beta program who have said, they used to test everything. They used to test kits, new characters, everything. And things maybe didn't run smooth, but kits and stuff ran smoother. Meathead has is the person who like really went to bat to get this beta program back up. Like, I don't know the lengths, but from what I understand, he really fought to get this going. And the hope is that the beta program goes well enough that it can continue and then it can expand into further things, right? So, I really do want to give him credit for realizing that this is such a huge change to the game that it does need some outside input. It does need another set of eyes. It does need other people looking at it to make sure it is. Maybe it's not the system everybody wants, but the best system from the system they decided was the right choice for them.
It's interesting if you compare and contrast this release to the Datacron release, because Datacrons were the end of the last beta program. It
Yes.
was there was a data there was, again, for folks to go in the Wayback Machine. There was someone in the the beta program that felt that Datacrons were going to be terrible for the game, and they took a bunch of screenshots. They released it to the community. They did it through another channel, so no one, I don't think to this day anyone knows who it is, or there are probably people that do. But they released this, and it was under the idea of, I am telling the community about this so we make it stop.
Yeah.
Not only did the community was the community unable to stop it, turns out that Datacrons are actually a pretty interesting change that happened to the game, and I would like people to keep that in mind. That, again, while the response to Datacrons was not nearly what we've seen over the last 2 weeks, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was people threatening to leave. This is terrible. You are ruining this game. It was the same rhetoric over and over. And it turned out to be the shot in the arm that we needed in PvP, because at least it changes the meta every 2 to 4 months.
Yes, which made the meta a lot more interesting. And those first couple of sets of Datacrons, they were oppressive. They were
Yes.
rough. Um,
Yes.
but would they have been as rough if there was a beta program that was testing them out,
Yeah.
in the meta? And some people can, of course, argue like, well, CG should be testing the game on their own and everything. And my thought process there is, yes, they should, and I'm sure they have a QA team, and that team is probably 2 to 3 people. And if they expanded it to the amount of people you'd need to be reliable, uh, prices would be
Yep.
so much higher than what they are right now, right? Because your payroll would increase significantly. Games like this, they exist on beta programs like that. People who volunteer to kind of help out with the program and test, and it's not like a 9 to 5 job. I don't spend my whole day doing it. Some days I am not able to do anything, and some days I sit down for an hour and a half and I try different things. But when you have a program that's big enough, you can try enough crazy things and just say, do way more than a traditional corporate program can do.
So we drained this swamp. I mean, is there anything else to hit on this topic?
No, I think we got it right, and I'm so like I'm not talking. Please don't DM me tomorrow. I will ignore you if not you. You can DM me, but anyone else DMs me about Relic Delta tomorrow, it's getting ignored because I'm. I said it before. I'm so sick of talking about it. There are some things that are interesting to talk about, but I also know that for the foreseeable future, I am going to be talking about it for like 3 to 4 times a week. So if I ignore your DM tomorrow, for anyone that has ideas or thoughts, know that I read it, but I'm not replying to it. I'm not engaging with it other than that.
But by the way, I do want to chime in. So we're an hour in, and I started this off with a rant again. And look, I'm going to apologize. Is part of it. I was frustrated. I was angry. Uh, some of this has been building up for a period of time. It clearly, I had notes and I wanted to actually go through this in a very nice fashion, and it came out very, very quickly. But look, I'm going to go back to apologize for this, but and I understand that people have that reaction. But what I'd like to see more of is one, people identify when they did it wrong. Maybe we say we're sorry in those cases, but more importantly, this goes back to how I view these things. You can be upset for a period of time. Then let's sit down and actually have a conversation and talk about how we solve some of these problems or what starts to be better from it. Like that's really what we should be doing. That's what I'm going to ask people to start focusing on. If you want to call me a hypocrite, more power to you. I said it before you did because no one else has heard this yet, so I win. All right, so I'm the winner of that piece. But yeah,
I'm surprised. I actually thought that the Relic Delta stuff was going to go a little bit longer. Um, we are hitting our normal. We usually go maybe like another 10, 15 minutes. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the B Wing, but
yeah,
I am curious about it a little bit. Um, the interesting thing about our development cycle here is that the update that addresses it came to the game today. So we are just seeing it now. I will go back to our last episode where you and I both kind of sort of together predicted the next two episodes, lifters and ships. Um, I had also said that my hope with these two ships was that Profundity gets one of them and Home One gets the other one, and that it'll bring two interesting dynamics to fleets. Have you had a chance to look at the kit yet? What are your thoughts?
I did, and I guess my immediate where I was immediately confused, and this may just be, I always viewed the B wing as a bomber,
Yeah,
not as an attack craft. So I looked at it and it said attacker, and I'm like, no, bombers are tanks. And no, it is not. It is not a bomber, which is where part of it came in. Um, I looked at it very, very briefly. I think it's interesting that it's designed to lower the cooldown on the ultimate for Home One. Uh, I'm still trying to figure out what the splits are.
yeah,
Uh, so the one comment that they made is it is specifically designed, and I think there's kit callouts that it does not work with rebel scoundrels,
correct.
which means do not put it with profundity. Like that's just the translation that they have there. Um, but I can't figure out. And look, I don't really interact with ships a lot. I can't figure out what the split is.
So my thought is, and this was my reasoning for why I thought there would be two fleets with these two ships. My thought is that, first of all, this allows you to reinforce right away,
Mhm.
right? Because on your first turn, you can get a
Yep.
reinforcement in. And that the two ships um, that don't have that ability would maybe go with this. So that would be like Cassian's U-Wing and Bistan's U-Wing. But I'm actually, after kind of seeing the kit, I'm like, maybe this entire home one fleet is going to be about calling out as many reinforcements as quickly as you possibly can. Because if you get a turn one reinforcement,
Yeah.
you can call in a turn two reinforcement, right?
Well, so I forget the exact wording of Phantoms, but Phantom allowed you to call it in one turn faster.
Yes.
So you're thinking if I start, say, Biggs, Wedge, and I'm going to say Kyle Katarn's ship because I just don't know where else it goes.
It has to,
And then,
right? It
yeah,
has to.
and then I bring in B Wing turn one, and then is your thought it's Phantom on turn two?
I feel like that's possibly something like that, where you're just going to get to five ships faster, and you're going to be using that ultimate to take things down. And how strong is this fleet going to be? I kind of feel like it's going to sit somewhere in the meta around where Negotiator is. And I know Negotiator has some interesting like things that you can do to take out like Leviathan every once in a while and Executor fairly reliably. I don't know necessarily if that's going to be it, but I do think it's going to have its place as a solid like A minus or B plus tier.
I'll tell you where it's going to go on defense for me and sit there for 9 months, and I'm going to forget that we actually got a ship for it. Is the way it's going to work. This is where I get confused with, especially the rebel ships, because again, I know that there's the CG's view of how ships should work,
Yes.
and then there's like how it. So the original intention of Profundity was the starting three, Phantom and Ghost, because Phantom could come in faster. You bring in Ghost behind it, and maybe that was a piece of the Profundity kit that was there, and then you bring in Cassian's Ewing if you needed the extra assist. What ended up happening, or the players figured out, is if I brought Ghost in first and used the Ghost mass assist, I could accelerate getting to. I could outplay the AI and I could get to ultimate faster from that side. So it feels like the idea of Phantom and Ghost going with Profundity, maybe they do get broken up from that side.
And
So
then you
does it
think the
become,
U-Wings?
well, I still think, I think it's going to be hard for people to pull Cassian away from Profundity, because again, he's got a mass assist. Like,
Yeah.
it's the case that if you need to get that ship in to do the mass assist to get to the ultimate, there's some advantages there behind that.
So then what
But
if
again,
we have Biggs and Wedge and Kyle Katarn in our opening fleet,
yep,
and you call it because Biggs, I believe, is the tank.
yes,
Yes, so
correct.
Biggs is the tank. I'm looking at my game over here. Biggs, Wedge, and Kyle Katarn. You call in the bomber, which I will point out again with the bombers. CG did do a whole post about why the bombers are tanks.
Yeah,
So I get your logic there. You call in the B Wing there, and then you're at 4. You have a tank on the field. You have 3 attackers on the field, right? I could see you doing some pretty considerable damage
yeah.
fairly early on. And then as I'm talking myself through this, it does make sense that Ghost and Phantom still go with Profundity just because at that point you have 4. You don't need 6.
But keep in mind, the Rogue One is always going to go with Profundity. Like, Rogue One
Yes,
throws this whole thing
yes.
off because that's going to be your first reinforcement no matter what you do.
For Profundity,
So
correct.
for Profundity, so maybe the Profundity is Rogue One and Cassian, and then everything else is kind of there
To interchange?
to interchange at that point. So um, it feels like, I can't believe I'm going to say this. It feels like all of a sudden we have too many rebel ships, and there's an answer to something coming. Again, we got too many other things that are coming right now, right now, but it feels like almost that we're starting to see the framework for a third rebel fleet. I just don't know what capital ship that would be.
Interesting. Interesting. Now, my hope is that they ignore your position here, and that they continue on this trend of making all of the current fleets usable. That is my
Yeah,
hope. I
yeah.
really hope that in February they do two more ships, and one of them is for endurance and one of them is for chimera, right? Something like that,
Yeah.
so that you can use both sets of Empire fleets, both sets of Galactic Republic fleets.
Well, if you're going to give us another ship for endurance, please make it so that it doesn't make more sense to put in the negotiator because
That kit is going to be very specific.
yeah, like, basic ability. You can basic if you are under an endurance lead. Special
Yes,
ability. You can use this ability if you are under an endurance lead.
I mean that we're starting to see kits that are getting that specific, and people get mad about it, but it's because we figure shit out and we're like, wait a second, this works
Yeah,
better here.
yeah.
So I just hope they go that route, but I could see them working into Red 5, right? I hope they don't, but I could see it.
But by the way, keep in mind that the last time that I went on a limb and I made a prediction for the game when we talked about what we thought the next big thing was, and I said it's going to be a parallel track to relics. I could not have been more wrong. I mean, it was literally the wrongest of the wrongs that could go into place. So yeah, take that for what it's worth.
No, I mean, you were wrong about that, but you were right about your ships. Okay, because normally we get one new ship a year, and this year I don't know, we got two in a month. So
Yeah,
there's your win right there.
yeah. All right, I'll
Um,
take it. I'll take it.
we can end on a win, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the best way to do it. You have anything else?
Uh, I don't. I don't. I don't know if you looked at the data mine. This is actually a question. I don't know if you've looked at the data
Okay,
mine. I
I did a
have.
little bit. I did a little bit. I think I know what you're
Did
gonna
did we
say. Go for it.
did we get any details on the next assault battle?
Wait, is there an assault battle in there that I didn't?
I don't know. Like so they said that there's going to be um, an air assault battle that's going to be called like I don't know search and destroy or
Oh,
something like that.
okay. So
But we don't have any details on it.
I think that from what I understand, and I can't remember my source on this information, I think it was a dev post, and it very specifically had to do with what are their names, Zuckus and the other
Okay.
guy,
Well,
uh,
long.
Forlom and Zuckus. So I think that these two ships are going to be excluded, and that is going to be a second half with those two characters, which is interesting because that makes it a two character era battle,
Yeah.
which, is, I mean, think about the Jedi one for people that are not whales and do not fully invest. It makes it a lot easier to target who you are going to
Yeah.
put shards into. So,
Yeah, and the reason why I ask is you get into this cadence of for folks that have unlocked the era battles, like this should be a week of 15 droid brains on Tuesday between Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and there's only one era assault battle this week. It's the pirate one. We don't get the Tuesday, Thursday, so it was missing that a little bit, but kind of wondering where I think there was we had some conversations in ODB. Is like maybe they'll replay one they're clearly not. It looks like the cadence is going to be twice a week while the event is going on, and then you'll get it once a week, maybe for about a month afterwards, and then it disappears kind of off the face of the earth. So
yeah, I think it's four iterations of two, four iterations of one.
okay,
But I mean, they've changed the rules a little bit on that as well. But at the same time, now with all this Relic Delta stuff and like droid brains are going to be in the scavenger, like it depends on what the exchange rate is
yeah,
and what the item is. So maybe it's not going to matter as much. Who knows?
it'll be all 2,000 of my Kairos for one droid brain. That will be the answer.
I'll have one and a half droid brains there. Perfect. It's wonderful. It'll be so worth it because I don't need those Kyrotechs.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we are good. If I have one last message, and just to reiterate the things that we said today, guys, again, I don't care if you agree with my opinions on Relic Delta, as long as you express them civilly. I do. I don't always have time to discuss things because, believe it or not, I do work. I know that I'm on Discord constantly, and it doesn't look like that, so I don't always have time to talk about these things. But I do really, really, really strongly appreciate when I see a well thought out argument that has um, counterpoints to something that I've said. Uh, just you don't need to be an asshole to
Yep.
tell somebody that you disagree with them. If you take nothing else from this episode that I have said, at least that is the only thing that I want you to take from me.
Yeah. Well said. Again, I got a little heated at the beginning. It's going to happen from time to time. Uh, it's easy to get heated. It's harder to say I'm sorry. Sorry. Uh, let's just be decent.
What is it, Bill and Ted? Be excellent.
Be excellent, everybody.
That's it. That's it. That has been my life motto for the last year is be excellent, everybody. And I'm gonna end on that. We're gonna cut this out. Just be excellent, everybody.